My name is Darren Joseph from HTJ.tax, and we're the team that seeks to demystify the sometimes confusing world of international tax. And today we have the honor and privilege of having another conversation with Mark. Mark, could you introduce yourself?
I'm an advisor to the entire financial industry on CRS, FATCA, and CARF, and I've advised the OECD and the EU Parliament and the EU Commission and the German government, etc. All this is on my website for anybody to look at.
Fantastic. Let's get to the other point that we touched on prematurely, the status of jurisdictions.
The day that they announced, when I say they, it was really the Global Transparency Forum, the OECD, for exchange of information on tax. They were the ones that were pushing this, not the OECD. And it's a BEPS action. There's 15 BEPS actions, but only 4 of the BEPS actions are mandatory. There's 15% tax and so, but this is not a mandatory BEPS. And I'm surprised, but I can understand why, because how the Global Transparency Forum invites new countries to join. There's a whole table that FATF produced, is how much crypto activity is in your country, how many CASPs are there, how many users they estimate, what's the value, etc., etc. We get to a country like China, which has no, because it's banned, there's no CASP there. So are they going to be invited? And the feeling is, even though they won't be invited, they will want to know the information because they've got tens of millions of their residents that haven't declared anything. Back to the time of the ICOs in 2017. 48 countries pledged to join when they announced CARF. That was last November. And then in about May, June this year, they updated that the number has increased to 58. Now, one of those countries is the US, but the US didn't really pledge. They just said, we are with you. There's no ways. I've had some arguments with some US lawyers. They won't join. And for instance, on the Corporate Transparency Act and on FATCA reciprocal reporting, they have a limited number of countries that they trust to exchange information with, and that's only 51. And they don't tell you why they regard a country as safe to exchange. So I don't see America joining. They've got very good domestic reporting, but not yet. So we've got 58. Will it go up? My feeling and experience with CRS, in CRS, you only started with 50 or something like that, 49 the first year. And then the second year, it went up to 88. And then every year since then, there's been about 10. I think even this year, there's 5 more. I saw one joined last week, or pledged to join last week, one of the Caribbean countries that hadn't joined. I foresee it's going to go one of 2 ways. If no more countries join, then it's going to be like mandatory disclosure rules. Only a few have joined outside the EU, and therefore we're not going to join. If it's 58, they're going to say, we're just going to lose our business. And people are going to start using, Hong Kong is not in, for instance, etc. So Singapore would lose crypto business. So it really, the number will either go up if more and more join, or it'll go down. Okay, just because you pledged doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't mean anything. Okay, so the Global Transparency Forum. So we know the US is really behind FATCA. It's a US initiative. We know that it's the OECD behind CRS. And the Europeans.
It's actually the Global Transparency Forum. The peer reviews sort of force you. Everybody says you haven't joined, you better join.
So who's driving it behind the scenes? Is it the Europeans? Is it the OECD? Is it?
Well, the Europeans have got their own DAC, okay? DAC 8. And they are quite strict on trying to be extraterritorial by saying, and I'm amazed with this, first of all, it's retroactive, but most important, it's extraterritorial. So they are saying any CASP that sells to an EU resident must register in the EU as a reportable CASP. Now, is that laughable or is that serious? I think it's laughable, but who's going to take a chance and not register? It's the EU pushing a lot, and the Global Transparency Forum. Now, it's interesting, if you go to the Global Transparency Forum, they give you the reports, the BEPS, the peer reviews, and it's the
Right.
BEPS and so on. But there's not a peep about CARF. Okay.
So again, because I'm thinking the Europeans already have their DAX. I guess what you're saying is that as far as you're aware, there's no particular group or bloc or individual nation that's driving the Global Transparency Forum. It is genuinely a collective initiative.
Yeah, I would say so. Now,
Okay.
the reason I come up with this, why I think this is true, the total market cap of crypto is 3 trillion, considering there was a 50% increase in the last month. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
one individual listed company like Nvidia or Microsoft, they're worth trillions.
Yeah.
So actually, the entire crypto market is a drop in the bucket.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't think it's ever going to be like a major issue. Stocks is worth what, 70 trillion around the world, and now we got something that's worth 3 trillion. Sorry, it's a lot more than 70 trillion.
Okay.
Stock.
All right. So let's stay with that then. So as you pointed out earlier, pledging to do something is quite different from actually doing it.
Well,
So how many have actually passed enabling
only
legislation?
Switzerland.
Only
Only
Switzerland.
Switzerland. Nobody else.
Nobody
And the
else.
pledge, a lot of them pledged to do mandatory disclosure rules, that is reporting a structure that avoids CRS, that always opaque, i.e. designed not to be able to identify beneficial owners. And everybody was gung-ho in the beginning. Yeah, we're going to do this. And then it began with Switzerland, Israel, Finland, Brazil. They all said, forget it. I'm not doing it because others are not doing it. And now today, there's only 3 countries besides the EU and its territories, BVI, dependent territories, crown dependencies, etc. So MDR is a total failure. It's only the EU and maybe 10 other countries, including the dependencies. I've just got a feeling that CARF is going to head that way, unless they they haven't announced one more new pledge since April. I don't know.
But I would imagine, as you said, it's 3 trillion on the list of priorities. It may not be quite up there, but as Bitcoin goes to the moon, then it becomes.
I think I saw a reading about why the OECD forward to CARF, and it was really much about this will grow. And if we just let it grow like mushrooms, it could grow out of control.
Right.